I just remembered today at 1212.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the City of Lebanon Plan Commission meeting, Monday, October 18th, 2021. I'll call the meeting to order. Kelly, would you have the roll, please?
John Lastly.
Yes.
Dan Bayshore.
Yes.
Kevin Krulik.
Yes.
Keith Campbell.
Here.
Ashley Paddock.
Yes.
Brian Tandy.
Here.
Allie Mullen.
Here.
Lori Gross. Here.
Okay. Everybody had a chance to read the minutes?
Yeah, Kelly, I'm here also. Jeremy.
Oh, Jeremy, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Either I mess your name up or don't call you at all.
So I'll take a motion for approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes as written. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. You want to call the roll, please?
John Lastly.
Yes.
Dan Bayshore.
Yes.
Kevin Krulik.
Yes.
Jeremy Lawler.
Yes.
Keith Campbell.
Yes.
Ashley Paddock.
Yes.
Brian Tandy.
Yes.
Allie Mullen. Yes. Lori Gross.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Ben, you want to come up? We'll start with old business, okay? Docket number 2147, continued from September 20th, 2120 meeting. IMI Lebanon requesting development plan approval to construct a new concrete plant to be located at 2450 South Indianapolis Road. The property is zone SF. Ben?
Good evening, Plan Commission members. I'll just do a very quick recap of the overview of the project itself, and then just kind of go through some of the concerns we heard at the Plan Commission meeting last month and how the applicant has worked to address those things. And then we'll let them walk through an exhibit where they show all of the additional aesthetic modifications they're doing to the site that are really beyond just kind of the technical details that I'll go through. So just a quick rehash, they are going to be relocating a facility to this site and adding it to the site, thus requiring development plan approval by the Plan Commission. And I want to bring up the exhibit, just kind of show you the overall site, and I'll get into the details of what it shows in a second. But the plant will be moved into approximately this location you see here onto the site. And some of the concerns that were heard last month, I know overall dust control was a big issue that was brought up. There were concerns brought up about the lighting and some of the noise and things like that. We did meet with them about a week after the meeting, and kind of the conversation there was that, and my thought was the best way you can control dust is by eliminating as much gravel, particularly where trucks are going to be moving through the site. So what this exhibit shows is I asked them to provide with me basically a maneuverability exhibit that shows you where the trucks enter, move through, and exit the site. So you can see here they're proposing their truck entrance will be this far northern entrance they'll move into and through the site through this path that you see here, and then out this central exit that you see here. So majority of this area, or a portion of this area, is already in concrete. Some of the southern part of the property. This northern part is not, and some of this central area is not also. So what they is showing here is everything in red are areas where they're going to be adding concrete to the site to address where the trucks will move through the site to make sure that they're not going to be moving regularly over gravel areas on the site, which will reduce a lot of the dust. So that was a major part. And the other thing we talked to them about is how to, I guess, aesthetically dress up the appearance of the site from Indianapolis Road. And so I won't steal all their thunder. This is actually their exhibit. But one thing we worked at is kind of the central part of the site and areas to be able to add some additional landscape and landscape beds across the front of the site. And so what they're showing here in these areas in blue are green and blue, but preserving some existing landscaping and then also adding some additional landscape beds around this what would be the truck exit from the site. So those are the major components in terms of both the concrete and landscaping that we talked about with them. They do have some additional aesthetic things I'll let them address on this plan with you here in a second. But those are the major components and changes that we discussed with them in terms of addressing some of those things. In terms of the lighting, they are still working on a lighting plan now that they've got the site figured out, generally speaking, where the building's going to be located. And they're going to be working with us to address the overall lighting for the site. They're going to be doing some upgrading of some of the lighting fixtures, et cetera. And we're going to work with them to make sure that they put together a photometric plan that shows it meeting all of our requirements in terms of lighting appropriate to a facility like this. So that may involve some directional lighting, some shielding of lighting to make sure that the light doesn't trespass on the neighboring properties. So we are going to be working on a lighting plan with that, so that will be something that will be forthcoming. Again, just kind of quickly, we did make some quick adjustments to the staff recommendation based on what I just mentioned. So we do recommend a finding compliance with the UDO and recommend approval of the development plan contingent on the following conditions. The first is one carry over from last time, and that would be TAC comments, that they adequately address any remaining City of Lebanon Technical Advisory Committee comments prior to application for building permits. And the second one would be that lighting plan. We did address it. We did add that one, that they would submit a lighting and photometric plan that meets all applicable UDO standards prior to application for any building permits or site improvements. And they are working on that currently, but we'll make sure that that gets finalized and meets all standards before they get their permits. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Then the applicant is here to address some of these additional aesthetics that I just briefly mentioned.
Any member of the board have questions for Ben? Not seeing any. We'll have the applicant come forward.
Good evening, Plan Commission. Thank you for having us here again. Again, my name is Willie Hall, Crossroad Engineers, 115 North 17th Avenue, Beech Grove, Indiana, 46107. Have some folks from IMI, property owner and developer as well. Ben did a great job again, kind of going through it. I won't rehash everything that we kind of brought up the last time about what we're doing on the site as far as the development-wise goes, but just kind of touching on some of those concerns. Following the meeting that we had last month, we took several steps here to try to resolve issues that were outstanding. IMI did go door to door, knocking on doors. I think they had maybe 3 people that responded to them. And we then had a follow-up meeting with Ben and Matt here at the planning department to kind of understand, to make sure that we understood all the issues that were in front of us. Going forward, again, Ben touched on a lot of it, but I wanted to just kind of a little bit more depth in a couple areas. We did provide the truck maneuverability exhibit that you saw. That was the first one there. Again, the truck path through is coming in, enter only through the north drive, exit through the southern portion of the site. You'll see the path in bold lines. The existing site's gravel and concrete right now. So the areas that are concrete that path goes over will stay concrete. Some of those areas we were taking out and putting in gravel before, we're taking that back to concrete. And then the areas in red are areas that were gravel and that are now concrete as well. So that's added concrete. Again, all the truck paths through the development that the concrete trucks are going to run on will be on concrete now. The other parts of dust control are, IMI is currently trying to, I think we touched on it briefly, but IMI is currently establishing a Clean Trucks initiative. They're targeting the beginning of next year to implement that in multiple sites around the state. And I believe it's a program that has incentives as well for employees and sites that do hit the different matrix of their clean initiative. The next thing, one of the adjacent property owner to the south had a concern with, if you guys remember, we're putting a large detention basin on site. We're taking that, what used to overtop through an inlet and then just kind of sheet flow south and go through the middle of the farm to the south. The pipe was undersized, it would get blocked often. That now is going through approved outlet structure, which will route out to the right-of-way of Indianapolis Road and then south to Fishback Creek. The Wilsons did have an issue with our original routing that went through some of their landscaping and their gardens. We've moved that out now on the final plan here. That moves it out in the pavement of Indianapolis Road through the passing blister, an A-cell, D-cell area there, shoulder. So now we won't be disturbing any of that. We'll just be disturbing the pavement and patch that back. So that was kind of how we handled that concern. Aesthetics, if you guys will flip back to that other exhibit that I handed you, the multicolored exhibit. What the concerns that we had heard, again, from an aesthetic standpoint, IMI understands. It is a concrete plant, but there are things that can be done to help that, to improve it as much as possible. The areas that you see in green are pretty much areas that are being preserved. So if you look at between the berm on the north side with the fence, That'll stay bermed. There'll be a fence there buffering that. The trees to the west will remain as a buffer that meets the city standards. The wetland area, we've been asked not to touch that, so that existing vegetation will stay. A lot of trees and brush, which does provide a buffering and screening. There's 3 large canopy trees out along Indianapolis Road that will stay. Those are in front of the existing house structure that's out there now. And then there's 3 existing buildings that are all remain and that are in good shape. They don't really require any repair or painting on those buildings. Like Ben said, the areas in blue are areas that we're making some changes as requested. So we're taking the gravel part of that drive in the middle of the site and making that concrete. We're adding some landscaping beds, not, as he said, not necessarily screening and buffering landscaping, but more of a beautification, planting shrubs, trees in mulch beds. And then on the south side of the site, half of the south side, we're going to add a double row of evergreens. I think there's 56 evergreen trees that we're going to add to that south side of the site. So that's a huge increase in buffering the plant that wasn't there before, that will be there. The orange area back there is an area that will remain but be enhanced. There'll be large canopy deciduous trees that get planted back there to fill in per the standards by the city. And there's 2 buildings that we've marked in orange that are buildings that will remain, that they need, but will be painted and improved. There's a tank there, I guess is one of those, is a tank that will be painted. The areas in red are being changed. So there's a small asphalt approach that will be taken out along Indianapolis Road. And then the southeast corner of the site, there's an area that's some rubbleized concrete. There's a concrete retaining wall. That stuff is all going to be removed. We'll bring topsoil back in and put grass seed down and vegetate that area at the southeast corner where the kind of larger, darker red area is. There is a tree in that area, and that tree will stay. And then there's a few buildings on the site that are marked in red that in the interim up front will be repaired and painted. And then as they move forward and get the plant under production, producing concrete, they'll consider if those get removed or if they just continue to upkeep those and maintain those. That's really the main areas of aesthetics that we wanted to address. The other couple items real quick is lighting. Ben touched on it already. We've prepared a photometric or a lighting plan that shows where the fixtures will be and what fixtures we're using and all that. We're waiting on the supplier to provide a photometric plan. As soon as we get that, we'll show that it conforms with the city standard, and we'll get that to Ben as that final condition of that. The other tack item that was on is there was one comment that the outside reviewer had still as far as drainage goes, and it was just the grading from one of the inlets in an overflow condition that it would go back to the pond, not to the south. We have updated that, provided that back to him. We just haven't gotten that final approval or stamp off from him. Hours of operation will continue. Their normal operating hours are 7 to 5, Monday through Friday. The only exceptions would be when demand or a project would necessitate something different. Water usage we touched on last time. I think this is largely maybe a city issue with residents and maybe what was indicated would happen previously and getting them city utilities. But outside of that, like we touched on last time, there are state laws that we most definitely will comply with. There's 3 existing wells on the site that they'll use. Other sites have used, other water tanks and such, but if anything is a problem, they will rectify that and either new wells or what it would take to supply the neighbors around them that have been impacted. And then the last thing that we heard really was noise reduction. IMI has talked about the fact that they will produce some signage for some of the aggregate drivers bringing material to the site to stockpile there, just not slam their tailgates, their braking and all that, to be a good neighbor really. And then and they also talked about kind of researching mufflers, and this is kind of a bigger initiative for them, just all their trucks in general, is how do they control some of the muffler noise, but also backup alarms really have to meet OSHA requirements, so there's only so much you can do there, but I think they've offered up to look into that as well. I believe those are all the items that we have heard and we understand to be the issues that we needed to address. I believe we have addressed those items, and I just again would request approval of the development plan that we've brought back in front of you, and we can bring up the IMI as we need to here, or answer any questions you guys have.
Anyone on the board have questions?
Excuse me, the only question I have we determined, or have you guys had any idea as far as what type of fencing you're going to put there on the north side?
Yeah, do you have that fence, what fence is
I mean, is it wooden, or is it composite, or chain link, or?
Adam Watts, 8032 North State Road 9, Greenfield, Indiana, 46140. That was based on what Ben's recommendation was going to be for us.
Okay.
So we were basically just waiting on, appreciate you, John, asking that question. We were just going to, wait
Sure.
on that.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Not hearing any, thank you. I'll open up the public hearing. And remember, you have 3 minutes to speak, and you can come up whenever you're ready. We'll open up the public hearing. Be sure you give your name and address, please.
Teresa Wilson, 3510 South Indianapolis Road, 46052. I just had a couple of things. He actually just answered several of the issues I still had. I did kind of want to know if there was going to be a continual street cleaning, loose rocks and the debris, because we get all of that, like mud or dirt from the trucks, and it would be really helpful. We have rocks, loose rocks in front of our house right now, and we don't have rocks, so they're coming from somewhere. So we're just kind of wondering if something like that could be done possibly once in a while as they see the streets. We're also wondering, since they're going to be doing the hookup, the drainage right in front of the house, if we could possibly hook up to it ourselves for drainage.
Yeah, and then we saw
Okay, all right, so we can talk with you about that. Yeah, because the southeast corner of our driveway, when Montgomery's owned that company, they made the southeast quarter of our driveway low for drainage, and it does kind of hold there for a while, especially in the winter. So we're wondering now with that, are you going to have some kind of a grate or something that might delay some of that coming back up farther in our driveway so we don't slip and fall or drown, whatever. Also, I'm still not clear on what kind of runoff that you're going to have the water, because that does eventually run into Eagle Creek, which is a water source for Indianapolis. So I know it's gray water, we have gray water, but I was a little curious about that. And then once the street's torn up, I assume you guys are going to fix our driveway and fix it, so with either blacktop or cement. I don't know. Okay.
Excuse me, if you could talk into the microphone,
I'm
because
sorry.
people
You'll
can't.
answer him when you're
I
done.
guess that's all I had.
Okay.
Okay.
He'll come back up and answer your questions.
I'm sorry.
The applicant will come back up
Okay.
and answer your questions. Okay? Anyone else would like to speak?
I'm Gary Hayes, and I live at 3720 Indianapolis Road. And I don't feel like the problem with the water situation, well water, has been adequately addressed. I mean, we've had some kind of vague reassurances that if our wells go dry, that IMI will fix that for us. And I really don't think that that's adequate. I think that they have perhaps maybe a burden to show that the present water table in that area is sufficient, since Lebanon will not be supplying the water to that area, since we don't have any municipal utilities down there. And a lot of the wells in my area down there are bucket wells, which are kind of inferior wells anyway, and I'm talking about newer homes. There's been a couple pieces of property down there where the mortgages, the money for financing for new homes was pulled because they couldn't get good well water, and the lenders didn't want to lend money on a house that had to have a bucket well. I know of 2 occasions where that's happened on 400 South. There's several homes in the Saratoga subdivision that had bucket wells, and now they're getting city water supplied from Whitestown, which is going to help their problems. Unfortunately, for us that live around the concrete plant, we don't have any way to tap into municipal water sources. And I feel like the burden should be on them to prove that there is sufficient water, since they've admitted they're going to be pulling out over 100,000 gallons of water a day, and they have 3 big wells, 3 deep wells. And of course, as homeowners, we just have 1 well, and some of them are quite a bit older. And I'm pretty sure if my well quits, I'm going to have to get an attorney before I get a new one from IMI. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, I'll close the hearing, and then I'll have Ben or the applicant come up and answer what we can, okay?
I think I got everything jotted down here. In regards to the first concerns, there's I think 4 items. Pavement patching, yeah, that will be done by city standards. There's a city pavement patch standard that will be used along any pavement removed will be replaced along Indianapolis Road, and that's shown in the plan, in the construction plans. The Eagle Creek question about water source, gray water, water quality. We do have water quality measures going in on the site. So actually the water quality leaving the site right now, it just floods up, sheet flows across the site, takes everything with it. Now that's collected, captured in the pond, treated in the pond, and leaves. So water quality will be an increase, most definitely. And then drainage, to connect drainage, yeah, we sized the pipe down Indianapolis Road, not just for us, but for any of the watershed along Indianapolis Road to connect to. As far as putting a pipe or a stub out there for them, I guess, if you guys are interested, we can stub an inlet out there, but it is sized accordingly. So we could pop one in that corner of the property without issue. Okay, so we can make that change. And then the street sweeping was a question that maybe I'll let you guys address.
Absolutely, yeah. Another thing that I want to address is, the DNR regulates the drinking water well regulation. This gentleman brings up a great point. I used to work for Mark Bash. His last name is spelled B-A-S-C-H. Indiana has one major water rights use law, and as a significant water withdrawal user, which we would fall under in that category, that's 100,000 gallons a day, which we would fall underneath that. If it's proven that we diminish the water supply of any residential area user in the area, we either have to, the law reads we have to supply that person or persons with another water source. That could be from a geologist digging deeper or putting in a holding tank, but we would be responsible for that. And as I told this in the last month's meeting, that's a really common rule in Indiana. And in terms of the sweeping, we intend on using a sweeper to keep the dust down, and that will not be a factor in this new construction whatsoever. We intend on doing that.
There's also you're talking about some of the gravel in front of your house already is, some of that area was gravel leaving the site, which now will be removed, right? And the concrete approaches will extend all the way into the property as well. So that will help with that as well.
Okay. Anything else, Ben?
Maybe just to reiterate, the city of Lebanon doesn't issue well permits. That's something that's done through the state. While it's certainly an issue of discussion, it's not something that we regulate or have any oversight on. That's done through the state. So the state would issue any permits, determine whether they've met all the requirements. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I would entertain a motion for this project.
I'll move to approve docket item number 21-47, the development plan for the IMI construction or concrete plant, contingent upon TAC comments being addressed and the lighting and photometrics design being approved by the planning department.
Second.
Do we have a second? Call the roll, please.
John Lastly,
Yes.
Dan Bayshore,
Yes.
Kevin Krulik, Jeremy Lawler,
Yes.
Keith Campbell,
Yes.
Ashley Paddock,
Yes.
Brian Tandy,
Yes.
Ally Mullen,
Yes.
Lori Gross.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, next item on the docket will be docket number 21-55, Arbor Homes requesting primary plat approval for Liberty Village subdivision, an 85-lot, single-family residential neighborhood on 33.92 acres, parcel located on East County Road 300 North, and the property is zoned SF2, single-family 2. Ben?
Thank you, Plan Commission. Give you a quick overview here. Again, this is a primary plat, which means that they are going to be building a residential subdivision that meets all the requirements of the established SF2 zoning district for minimum lot sizes, setbacks, et cetera. And then they will also be meeting all required landscaping and architectural standards of the ordinance as well. The site, if they want to pull up the screen, we'll kind of work with this because I realized I didn't put an aerial photography. So this is at the far northeast corner of the community. What you kind of see here in the gray here is actually Auburn Meadows. So this is the site that's directly east and adjacent to Auburn Meadows. My recollection of the history here is this was actually annexed at the same time as Auburn Meadows. There was some conversation about that at that time about perhaps Auburn Meadows extending further east. That did not happen. This site was never acquired by the developer of Auburn Meadows. So while it was annexed in Zone SF2, it was never incorporated into the overall plan for Auburn Meadows. But it has been a site that's been within the city limits for that period of time. At the current time, we now have an applicant that's proposing, again, a primary plat, a single-family residential neighborhood on the proposed site. They're working their way through that process here with the Plan Commission. So again, in terms of process, because it's a primary plat, this is a decision that's solely for the Plan Commission. This doesn't require any decision from the council because it doesn't involve a zoning change or the like. So this is purely a primary plat that's the responsibility of the Plan Commission for approval. And then they would move forward then with their construction drawings and secondary plats if it were to receive an approval this evening. So let me find then. This is the overall development plan for the site as you see here. One additional component here is based on the thoroughfare plan, there is a location for John Bart Road to be extended further north up to 300 North. And the western boundary of their site would be where John Bart Road would be extended through. There is existing right-of-way that has been documented for Auburn Meadows, and we're asking them to match that to make sure we have appropriate right-of-way for John Bart Road to be extended in the future. And then also the proposed right-of-way for 300 North, they're accommodating that as well. So they have accommodated all the proposed rights-of-way that we expect. You can see that they have their primary entrance will be off 300 North that you see here to the northeast corner of the site. And then there would be a secondary entrance that would be off of future John Bart Road to the southwest. And then we did ask them to provide a stub to the south for any future development that may occur to the property to the south that's existing agricultural property. So in terms of adjacent land uses, as we discussed, to the west is Auburn Meadows, which is part of their undeveloped future sections. To the north is agricultural, to the south is agricultural, and to the east there are a handful of large lot single-family residential uses. So it's primarily surrounded by either residential uses or agricultural uses. So again, in terms of primary plat, this is an SF2 zoning district, and so they have proposed to meet all of the minimum standards associated with the SF2 zoning district, which is a minimum lot area of 9,000 square feet. And there are a series of lots that are around 9,000 square feet, but they also get much larger than that for some of the other lots, depending on the design of the neighborhood. They do meet all of the proposed the setbacks that are required for the SF2 district, which would be a 25-foot front yard setback, and then side yard setbacks of 7.5 feet, rear setback of 20 feet. Minimum square footage on the homes is 1,500 square feet per the ordinance. I'm sure they'll go through some of their product with you here in a little bit and can show you that they're much larger than that 1,500 square foot minimum. Again, as I mentioned previously, they do meet or exceed all of the architectural landscape standard requirements of the ordinance. And just to go through some of those, just for purposes of education for the Plan Commission, anybody in the audience, there are anti-monotony standards that make sure that no houses are adjacent to each other will look the same. And so our standard is that no house shall be of the same front elevation design as any other house within 4 lots along the same block or directly across the street. So you got a distance of 4 lots before they could repeat the same exact front elevation. And no single front elevation house design may constitute more than 25% within any single phase of the development. So again, just make sure we got a variety of houses in any phase of the development. On corner lots, they are required to include a minimum of 3 windows, at least 3 foot by 5 foot, on the side of the home facing the street to make sure we don't have any blank walls adjacent to the street. Facades are all required to have a minimum 50% masonry on the front elevation. Masonry products include brick, stone, texture, or concrete masonry units. Side and rear home elevations facing a public street, so essentially corner lots, shall have at least 30% masonry on the side that is visible from the street frontage, and contain at least one architectural feature. We've got a long list of architectural features. All homes will have at least 9-inch overhangs on all sides. And in terms of architectural features, again, we have a long list of about 20 different architectural features. Each home has to have a minimum of at least 4 of those features from that list. Some examples are a front porch, decorative garage doors, side-load garage, full first floor masonry wrap, sunroom, shutters, etc. And in terms of facade proportions, we want to make sure that the garage is not any more than 45% of the front elevation in terms of proportions. On landscaping, we do have, let me go find the landscape plan overall and kind of get an idea for that. This kind of gives you a little bit of an idea here. So we do require a street tree about every 45 feet, and they have shown those on this elevation here. And then also each lot will include at least 2 front yard trees and 8 shrubs and a foundation planting bed, and that would be in the front yard. For corner lots, they are required to have an additional tree, which would be an evergreen in the side yard along the street, and additional 8 shrubs in that street side yard. And then both the front and side yards adjacent to the street shall include sod as opposed to seeded. And again, in terms of landscaping, we do have a requirement adjacent to any public street along the perimeter that they include at least a 20-foot buffer yard planted with trees and shrubs, and that's what you see represented here along the 300 north frontage, and then along future John Bart Road frontage, the buffer requirements associated with that. We do not require buffers where there would be similar uses in between 2 properties. So all of the proposed land uses adjacent to the east and south would be residential. So we don't require buffers here and there. They do, however, have common areas that are 20 to 25 feet along those perimeters, so you won't see backyards directly adjacent to those neighboring properties. They have provided an area that would be maintained in common that are between those lots. I think that's a quick rundown of the ordinance requirements that will be established here. Again, they're intending to meet all of the ordinance requirements for this as it's a primary plat. We do have a series of TAC comments that have been sent to them, and they've addressed many of them. I think they do have some additional items from the engineer that they're working through and should have those addressed in very short order. With that, then, planning staff has reviewed this primary plat for compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance and recommends approval of the subject primary plat contingent on the following conditions. 1, that the applicant adequately address any remaining City of Lebanon TAC comments prior to submission for construction drawings of a secondary plat. And 2, stormwater approval. They receive formal drainage approval from the City of Lebanon Board of Public Works prior to approval of construction drawings in a secondary plat. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions from a member of the board?
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
For Arbor Homes, Riley Ridge neighborhood, how many lots were sold for that development?
I believe it's, if I recall correctly, it's 86 lots in that neighborhood.
And that one's already sold out?
Yes, in about 14 months.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
From the plat, is there a sidewalk on the north?
Yeah, they would have sidewalks on both the north and west, and then every internal street has sidewalks on both sides.
Okay, because I know there's one already on Auburn Meadows on the north end up
Yes.
there too,
Yeah,
so.
they would be required
They
to
would-
extend that.
The only thing that wouldn't be connecting them would be the house in
That
between at this point.
Yep, correct.
Okay.
Hey, Ben, on the landscape design, did I see correctly that there's going to be trees in between the sidewalk and the street?
Yes. Which is a requirement of the ordinance.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay. You want to have the applicant come forward, please? You finished, Ben?
Good evening, Charles Russell, Entitlement Manager for Arbor Homes. I'm here this evening with Mike King of American Structure Point. Structure Point has been the engineer for us on this project. I'll just start off by giving and just real quick, can you all see the presentation on your screens?
Yes.
Excellent. Just a quick overview of who Arbor Homes is for those who are unfamiliar. We are one of the largest single-family home builders in central Indiana. We've been owned and operated, family-owned and operated for the last 27 years, building single-family homes. Recently, we were acquired by Berkshire Hathaway to join their family of companies, and that has really allowed us to scale our production, and so we can bring much-needed homes to more communities around central Indiana. To show some context, as been mentioned, we are northeast of town, just east of the Auburn Meadows subdivision, just south of 300 North. This is a closer look at the site. The site is zoned SF2, as is Auburn Meadows to the west. This was annexed, as been mentioned. The properties to the north, east, and south are part of the county. Those are either zoned agriculture or single family within the county. Going over our proposed plan tonight, we are proposing 85 lots on approximately 33.9 acres. Our primary access would be from 300 North, with again having access from that future John Bart Road, and then planning for any future development, we would be providing a stub to the south for better connectivity throughout the community as it extends out there. As part of this plan, we'll also be including an amenity area, which will have gazebo, sitting area, fire pit for residents to enjoy. That is in the southeast corner of the retention pond in blue. And then, as I said, we'll be meeting all of the standards of the zoning ordinance for the SF district. That includes minimum lot size, minimum lot width. 9,000 square foot is the minimum lot size, so there are some within our development that are that. But most of the lots are probably above that 9,000 square feet. To go over some of the homes that we would be constructing here, these are just 6 samples of the types of homes we would be building. We offer 11 unique floor plans. Each of those floor plans comes with a handful of architectural styled elevations. So we have traditional elevations, craftsman, Tudor elevations, and that's really to provide our home buyers some variety, and also so that we can make sure we're not just building the same home in the communities that we're joining. As been mentioned, the city has an anti-monotony standard within the zoning ordinance. Arbor has our own internal and anti-monotony standard, so we would definitely meet and or exceed that code within the zoning ordinance. We don't want to build the same house over and over, and having those 11 unique floor plans provides us and our home buyers the opportunity to have a home and a community that's unique to them. As I mentioned before, our home buyers have the opportunity to choose between one of our 11 unique floor plans. Those floor plans range anywhere from the minimum required 1,500 square feet up to 3,200 square feet. When someone purchases a home with us, they get the opportunity to come to our home office in Indianapolis and walk through our design center, where they meet with our professional designers to pick all of their interior and exterior finishes. That's something that we provide that not many other home builders provide. Typically, it's a predetermined package deal of what the finishes are. We allow our home buyers to pick what they want so that they can get some real ownership over their brand new home. And with that, I am free to answer any questions, and Mike is also free to answer any questions that you may have about technical engineering.
Okay, anyone from the board have questions? All right, see any or hear any? I'll now open up the public hearing. If it's the same thing, if you'd like to speak, you have 3 minutes to speak. And then we will call, at that point, then when everybody's finished talking, we'll close the meeting and then we'll take a vote. Okay?
Hello, I'm Delaney Johnson, and if you want to put up that drawing, I'm the one house that's right in their big corner. There are a couple of things that made me nervous when I first got this, is that whole field behind me floods. So if you put a housing addition back there, they're going to raise up all that land and that water's all going to come to my yard. I just paid the city 4 years ago for all new tile. It's worked wonderfully. My yard doesn't flood anymore, it hasn't. But I know from being around construction long enough that they go building back there, all that tile that they put in that field 3 years ago now is going to be junk. So all that water is going to go somewhere. And I'm really worried that that water is going to end up in my yard. And so, you know, that's a big problem for me because I haven't had any problems with water since I've been there. Used to be the side yard used to flood a lot. When they came in and put the new tile in, 0 problems. I have a puddle every now and then when I'm talking downpours happen. But I know if a housing district goes in there, I've already had some problems with my well. I had to pump out my septic system this year. First time I've had to do it in 20 years. Okay, and I think it's because that road's being used a lot beside me. Okay, that gravel road, because there's trucks that go up and down that road daily now. And plus there's a lot of kids that go back there and park and do things, but you know, I don't care about that. I'm just, you know, I watch who goes back there because I want to know who's driving besides my road, but you know, you put a road there permanently and now I've got headlights sticking in my front room that I never had for 20 years. So it's just, you know, you got heavy duty power wires that have thrown sparks at my house before, you know, and now they want to build 85 homes. And what I was curious of too is they have a big area right behind my house that they left open. There was no plots there. Is that because really that's where a retention pond should be? Because I'm telling you, that's where it floods. You can easily see where it kills all the beans, where it floods. And that is exactly where the retention pond should be. Unfortunately, that's not where they had it. So that's one of my big things, and I don't really want to be annexed into the town because I like my little country home, and that's why I lived there for 20 years. And you know, it's bad enough when they built the houses next to me. We have so many housing additions. I don't want to be the next Whitestown. If any of you drove through Whitestown lately, it looks like a disaster to me. It's just all housing additions. And I'm sorry, that's not why we all moved out to Moon County. That's not why we moved here. You know, we wanted to be out in the country a little bit. You know, and I know I probably can't stop anything, but I at least want something put in that where if they push all that water to my yard, I have some recourse. Or if they damage my well, shut my well down like they were talking earlier, you know, what can I do about it? You know, I mean, it's a real problem when you start putting that many homes that close together. You know, when it's been fields all this time, I mean, I knew it was going to be a housing addition someday, but I didn't think it'd be 85 homes in that small of a piece of property. I mean, that is a lot of homes on top of each other. You know, I guess that's all I didn't know what else I can do. If somebody wants to sit down with me later and say something I can file, something I can petition to, say if you flood my yard, you have to pay for this. Because I'm pretty sure I know it's going to happen. The tile fixed all the issues.
Sir,
but
thank you for your time.
Okay.
Your time is up, and we'll answer your questions in a minute. Okay, anyone else like to come forward and speak?
My name is Teresa Clark. I'm at 1261 East, County Road 300 North. I'm on the other side. So I sit on the other side of that 34 acres that they're proposing. My first question is the price point. We are a nice rural community. I think that's kind of who Lebanon is. One of my concerns is that, as Delaney noted, there's 85 homes that they're going to just kind of jam onto that 34-acre plot at a lower price point, which has an effect on the appraisal of our homes going forward. There's probably 12 to 15 homes on that road. We've been there for about 20 years, and all of them probably going to appraise somewhere in that 300 and up range. We've been happy with what we've seen at Arbor Meadows going in. Those are quality homes. Price point is about where they should be, we feel. We're concerned about maybe this is just a little bit, these are smaller homes, and that the appraisal is going to be a problem for us going forward. I'm also concerned about the fact that I see, just from what it looks like, I went from a 10-acre property to 15 homes that are going to be staring at me whenever they get around to doing that. So I think one of our concerns is we feel that 85 homes is a little excessive. They're putting it on tiny, tiny little lots. I don't believe that that's what Lebanon is. I think we're more rural than that. Not to say that they have to be expansive, but that's just one of our concerns. We, as Delaney mentioned, we've moved out into the country because we enjoy that. And it is a little bit more rural, and that is kind of what Lebanon's profile is. He also mentioned the tile that we put in. I was assured when they put in that tile, and we were all assessed about $5,000, that it wasn't going to benefit a community coming in, but it appears that that's not the case. So I'm just wondering if that's going to be reassessed and kind of reallocated to this community that's coming in. I also was curious about, one of the concerns we have is the infrastructure, whether or not 300 North is going to be able to handle that. We've got Arbor Meadows putting in, I don't know how many homes are going in, but they're developing that second phase. Then this one's going to be going in just around Delaney's house. So that's a concern for us as far as 300 North being able to handle that infrastructure. I'm also concerned about whether or not our schools can handle the number of people that we've got, just explosive growth on that particular road over the next, I don't know how long it'll take for them to put it in, but that is a concern. I know Lebanon Central, can they handle that type of growth that quickly? Aesthetically, they look nice, but they're smaller homes.
Okay, thank you.
To say at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben, you'd like to come forward? I'll close the hearing. Anybody else to speak? Didn't think we had anyone else.
They used to have a map on there, but maybe.
Maybe anybody on the board and when I close the hearing, I'll close the public hearing here, and then we'll have Ben come forward.
Yeah, just to maybe address a couple of them. I know drainage was brought up a couple of times, and we have this discussion each time a new development comes in. We have a drainage ordinance that regulates how they manage their stormwater on the site and how they release the stormwater off the site. They have to meet all of those standards. So that basically would say that they have to detain all their water on the site rather than pushing it off onto neighboring properties, and then release it from that detention network to an appropriate outlet somewhere. I'll let them from the technical side explain more where they're going to outlet, but they're not permitted to just push the water from their site on neighboring properties. We have an ordinance that regulates that in terms of detaining water, releasing water at an acceptable rate, so that it doesn't happen as their concerns have suggested. So we definitely address that with our ordinance. They have to meet all those requirements before we can really release them from construction, and that's under review right now, and they would need to receive that approval before they could move forward with anything. So we're clearly going to address that. From a utility standpoint, are there questions about their wells and septics? This neighborhood's going to be on public utilities. They're going to be extending water and sanitary sewer from adjacent sites. In order to serve the sites, there should be no impact on any neighboring properties in terms of wells and septics, because this will be on all public utilities. Annexation was also brought up. This property is already annexed to the city. We're not going to be annexing any additional properties. Part of this, we're not going to force anybody to annex to the city. That's not the city's desire. So that's not part of our process at any point. And then also we've had discussion about schools before too. Our schools have plenty of capacity. The last number I'd heard is they have between 800 and 1,000 spots for additional students throughout the school system. So they have additional capacity to add students over time. And I know they're having an open house this week, Wednesday night, discussing their future plans. They're already doing master planning process for facilities as we speak. So in addition to having existing capacity for a number of students, they're also doing some future master planning on facilities to make sure that they're accommodating the growth. They're very much in tune with what's happening throughout the city and working with us as these developments come in so they understand what's happening, making sure they have the facilities that are adequate for that. So I think that covers the things that I think I can cover, and I think the applicant maybe can address price points and some of those others related to the development itself.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Would the applicant come forward, please?
Yeah, I think Ben covered all of those utility questions. For the stormwater and sanitary service, as he said, we'll be connecting to the public service. All of that will be going to the west. We are looking to tie it into the stormwater system that is being built at Auburn Meadows. We're in talks with that developer to see how we can accomplish that. And then with the sanitary, that is also going towards the west and tying into the system there as well. In regards to price point, I believe I ran the numbers earlier this afternoon, and just looking at since January of 2020, the average home sold for $216 in Riley Ridge. We anticipate homes in this community to average in the mid 200s for the homes that we showed above. And with that, I can field any more questions that you may have.
Any other questions from the board?
Keith, Kevin or Ben, either one, can either one of you touch on this drain, the tile that they're talking about that was added to their property? Or, I mean, does that flow over to Meadow Wings, or what? I'm confused on what that is.
Major project, it went all the way down our road to, started at our property and went all the way down to Iceville Road.
They need, you need to come up.
If you can,
Could you come
would
up
you
here,
come up and
'cause-
explain if you don't mind?
I don't know what the name of it was, but when they started it, they actually started it on Elizaville Road. They tore up that one guy's yard and they tied it into a creek bed back there, and they put all new tile all the way down 300. So it went to every field that's there, and they made all the houses on our road, basically, everybody had to chip in $5,000 if you were on that.
And this
So
was
that
the
went into our
city?
taxes, yeah.
This was the city that did this?
Yes.
Not the city, it was the county.
It was the county, I think. It was
Yeah, I
county,
don't think
but
the city
whoever
did
did it, we all had to pay for it to put it in. And
Okay.
I know when they're going to put the housing addition in, all that tile they put in will be junk, because you start digging and start tearing it up, it all just gets disintegrated. So,
Is there a way, Kevin, that they can be hooked in?
A couple of things we can, just to point out. One, we're at a primary plat level, so there's a basic level of design that we need to see, and we're working with them to review, but these are not full construction drawings. So there's a whole other round of submittals to submit construction
Right.
documents that they will build off of.
and the only other question I really had for him that I don't think anybody addressed, behind my house, you left the whole big thing open where there's no houses. What is that area? And that area is what I'm concerned, because that area is what floods. I mean, if you go directly behind, I put a weeping willow tree back there on purpose because they love water and they will suck water for everywhere. And it's done a great job. As a matter of fact, it's thriving back there. But it's because there's always water down in that area.
I'm looking at the plans right now that were submitted. That area is a common area, so it's not going to be anything but turf grass that's there and landscaping. But even right now, even though we're at a preliminary stage of construction design, it denotes low area holding water. There are, probably within 100 feet of your property, there are no less than 3 storm sewer structures that are meant to drain this area. The grading has lowered that area so that the low area holding water, as it says in the plans, will drain to those storm sewers into the detention system. Back to the legal drain that the county, I assume it was a legal drain that the county surveyor's office probably built. They will be required to locate that. They will be required to permit any relocation or removal of that through the surveyor's office. They will be required to perpetuate any drain connections that exist. So where your house ties into that tile, they will be required to perpetuate that into a relocated legal drain or their proposed storm sewer system.
Because I have one big drain in my back, behind my garage and building, there's a big steel grate that actually ties into that tile.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't have.
No, I don't want to dismiss any of Mr. Johnson's concerns because they're valid, but I think you'll see that those concerns are addressed through our subdivision process.
I just wanted to verify that it was the city that did it. When you were talking, I assumed that was who it was, and I wanted to verify.
I don't know who did it, but we all ended up having to pay for it, everybody on that road.
Yeah, and I don't think the city would have done that.
I can guarantee you it wasn't the city.
The city wouldn't have charged you to do that, I don't believe. So that's why I was wanting to clarify who it was.
And the city doesn't levy drainage assessments to pay for things like that.
Now, I know the farmer had to pay a lot more than we did, I will. It was all based on how much land that you own.
It was a county then.
Keep in mind also that the surveyor's office is part of our technical advisory committee, so they're reviewing these plans at the same time we are, so they're aware of the tile locations, et cetera, and making sure that we're accommodating that. So it is definitely part of the review process. The county is part of that.
Any other questions for Ben? And would the applicant like to respond to what that green space going to be?
Yeah, so when we put together these concept plans, even way before we get here, we always try and consider the existing neighbors. And so part of the reason for that much larger green area was, we understand that you've lived there for 20 plus years and we want to respect that. And so when we are able, we like to give as much buffer as we can. And so that was part of that decision of providing that open space there.
Okay. Thank you.
The only other thing is, like I said, the traffic. That road, I'm gonna have headlights going in my house every day. Yeah, right there at the corner where they gotta turn.
Yeah.
So literally headlights are gonna be, I put up a fence or something, I don't know.
Okay. Ben, you have a question?
I would just suggest John Bar Road's been on our thoroughfare plan since the last rendition of it.
Right.
So it's probably been 10 plus years that we've planned for some extension of John Bar Road. So it's not necessarily a new concept that would run through there. But that's a future project that's not being constructed as part of this project. There's no timetable for its construction. So
Right.
We're really talking about theoretically at this point because we don't have any plans for it.
Neither this project nor the Auburn Meadows project are required to construct John Bart Road. So I can tell you right now, the city has no plans for when that will happen, has no budget for making that happen. It is on our thoroughfare plan, so it is there at some point, but it has no schedule. So
Housing additions have to have 2 exits out.
not necessarily.
Requirements for everybody. Okay.
You know,
There'll be 85 homes, and they'll all be exiting in just that one road, most likely between us.
Right, they'll be required to conduct some basic level traffic assessments. They'll be required to widen 300 North to make sure there's at least 2 lanes of adequate travel, 22 feet of traffic. they'll be required to do A-cell, D-cell lanes, any kind of those turning entry maneuvers. They'll be required to accommodate all that once we get to final construction documents.
Is that just finding the minimum, will that just be property or from 300?
It will just be adjacent to their property. We can't require them to improve anything further.
Is that required right now by Auburn Meadows?
Was not. That was approved.
The PUD?
No, Auburn Meadows is a straight SF2 zoning, but it was approved, in 2007, I believe. We had different standards at that time.
Correct.
Okay. If they need to come up here because
Come
nobody can hear
come to
them.
the microphone
To
as you
the
speak.
microphone. Yeah, because nobody can hear you back there.
For the question from the board, go up to the microphone, please.
Thank you, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think we had anticipated that it was just going to, that Auburn Meadows was just going to expand in between our two properties. I think our greatest concern, and I think all of the neighbors that we've spoken with, that we're most alarmed about is that those lots that they're proposing are the smallest you could possibly get. And we're all on 1 acre or more. I'm personally on 10, but I mean, so it's more of a rural community, as I said before. So I think we're just concerned that we don't want to look like Waitstown, where they're just putting houses on top of each other. And I think all of you here can probably appreciate and empathize with what we're dealing with because we've been there for so long. We know that it needs to grow, and we know that they need to put in homes. I think we just don't want to give up the aesthetics because we have to live with it, just for cost of profit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just for understanding, the lot size was minimum 9,000. They said that was a few of the homes. Auburn Meadows has the same, there are several lots there that are 9,000, 9,200.
Yeah, this is the same zoning as Auburn Meadows, and the way our ordinance works, it sets a minimum standard, which they meet the minimum standard. It's the only, in terms of legislating the development of primary plat, we just need to make sure that they meet the minimum standards in order to be approved. But 9,000 is a minimum. There are a number of lots that are much larger than that. So they more than meet our minimum standards that are set up for the zoning district, and it's been zoned this way for 14 years. So they're not asking for a change from the zoning that's been in place for 14 years, and they meet all of our standards.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
Anyone else have a question on the board before we ask for the vote? Not seeing any. I would entertain a motion for docket number 21-55.
I'll move to approve docket item number 21-55, primary plat for Liberty Village subdivision, contingent upon any remaining TAC comments being addressed, as well as the stormwater approval by the Board of Public Works.
Okay. And we have a second. Okay. Would you call the roll, please?
John Lossley?
Aye.
Dan Bayshore?
Aye.
Kevin Krulik?
Aye.
Jeremy Lawler?
Aye.
Keith Campbell?
Yes.
Ashley Paddock?
Yes.
Brian Tandy?
Yes.
Ali Mullen?
Yes.
Lori Gross?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passed. And our next, do we have any other business that we know of, Ben? I think that's everything. The other thing is that next motion, all of you like to have once in a while, I know, it's called adjournment. So I just entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Everyone say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Our next regular meeting on the Lebanon Plan Commission is scheduled for Monday, November 15th. Thank you. Have a good evening.